Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I'm Michelle DiMarzo, the Curator of Education and Academic Engagement here at the Fairfield University Art Museum. And thank you so much for joining us, both our intimate crowd here in the Kelly Theater and those who are joining us on thequicklive.com for what unbelievably is our first opening night in 2 years. Perhaps to make up for those missed opportunities, tonight we are celebrating the opening of not one but two exhibitions of contemporary Chinese art, Ink Stone, curated by Ive Covaci, and Seeing is Believing, organized by Jo Yarrington. We'll hear first tonight from Ive Covaci about Ink Stone, but it was actually the latter show, Seeing is Believing, that was in the works first. Seeing is Believing was originally planned for 2019, if you can believe it. And the goal was to welcome the 5 Chinese artists here to Fairfield University's campus. Unfortunately, this was postponed due to the pandemic. And originally, the exhibition was slated to be held in Loyola Hall in the Lukash Gallery belonging to the Studio Art program, but it became sort of a pandemic silver lining that the museum was able to rearrange a bit in our exhibition schedule and host it here in the Walsh Gallery. And at the same time, we in the museum had also been thinking about Chinese art. We had recently accepted a donation of a painting called Song of Pond, which we will find included in the Ink Stone exhibition. At that time, we had a 6th century Chinese Buddhist stele that was on loan to us from the Avery Art and Architectural Library at Columbia University. And we have been talking to Dr. Covaci about how to work these pieces together into an exhibition. So it was already in our minds. And we decided to go ahead with both of these exhibitions simultaneously, in part because we were concerned that Seeing is Believing might have to be postponed or canceled again, and that at the very least we would still have Ink Stone to present here in the Walsh Gallery. As it turns out, we did not have to cancel Seeing is Believing, but unfortunately none of the 5 Chinese artists in that show were able to join us as we had hoped. So that explains how we have come to have not one but 2 exhibitions of Chinese contemporary art opening this evening for you to explore in the Walsh Gallery after tonight's events. And for those of you who are watching from home, please feel free to visit fairfield.edu/museum/ink-stone or fairfield.edu/museum/seeingisbelieving. And I'm sure that Jesse can put that into the chat for you so you can find your way to those exhibition pages. And there you will be able to tour these shows as well using a Matterport 3D virtual tour. I also want to mention that we have another opening event 1 week from tonight, that is next Thursday, in our Bellarmine Hall galleries for a show focusing on the storied career of photographer Adger Cowan. So we hope that you will be able to join us for that as well. And now it's my pleasure to introduce the curator of Ink Stone, Ive Covaci. She's a lecturer in art history here at Fairfield University, where she teaches courses on the arts of Asia and global introductory art history. She received her PhD from Yale University with a focus on pre-modern Japanese Buddhist art and narrative painting. She's held fellowships at the Sainsbury Institute for the Study of Japanese Arts and Cultures in the UK, and the Asia Network Luce Foundation Postdoctoral Teaching Fellowship at Fairfield. In 2016, Dr. Covaci was co-curator of the exhibition Kamakura, Realism and Spirituality in the Sculpture of Japan at Asia Society Museum in New York City. And in 2020, she curated the exhibition Gifts of Gold, the Art of Japanese Lacquer Boxes, an exhibition that was unfairly curtailed by the beginning of the pandemic here at the Fairfield University Art Museum. We are so delighted to be working with Ive again on this show, and please join me in welcoming her to the stage.
Hello. Thank you, Michelle, for that really kind introduction. And after the, as Michelle mentioned, the lacquer exhibition that closed early in the midst of the pandemic's early days, it's really wonderful to be back here opening this new show today, even if not quite in the usual format. So thank you all for coming today, and thank you to those who are listening in from home. I hope you'll come and see the show, or at least virtually if you cannot make it to campus. I want to extend my gratitude to the lenders to the exhibition for sharing their treasures with us here on campus, including Stephen Rockefeller and Jane and Leopold Swergold, who are longtime patrons of the museum. I was first introduced to Jane and Leo my very first semester, I think it was, at Fairfield many years ago when we collaborated on a show of Chinese funerary art. And I've greatly enjoyed learning from them over the years that I've known them. I also want to thank the institutional lenders to the exhibition. We've assembled quite a few interesting and diverse objects here for this show that have come from the tri-state area, really. Working with the team at the Fairfield University Art Museum is always a joy from start to finish. Carrie, Megan, Michelle, and Rosalinda, thank you. And also to the team of art installers who mounted the show with ingenuity and great care. I thank Carrie for the invitation to curate this exhibition and for her confidence in me. I was navigating a new landscape for putting this together, so I've learned a lot, and I really continue to look forward to learning from the experts who are coming to campus with the many wonderful programs we have organized with this exhibition, as well as with Seeing and Believing that Jo has arranged for that exhibition. So I encourage you all to come back for those. They're in the back of the brochure as well as on the museum website. I want to call your attention to the gallery talk with Yao Wu on February 8th, I apologize. She's a specialist in modern Chinese art, curator at the Smith College Museum of Art. And then also Michelle Yuen Maplethorpe, director at Asia Society Museum, who's coming on February 22nd to speak about landscape in contemporary Chinese art practices. And of course, there's also a fantastic set of programs with Seeing is Believing, hearing directly from the artists themselves in that show. And speaking of the shared space, thank you, Jo, for being really the catalyst for this exhibition and for bringing the work of these 5 wonderful artists to campus. I was really delighted by the synergy between the 2 shows when I saw them installed together. And I think the museum folks probably saw me doing a little happy dance when I saw how many wonderful connections there were between the shows. I think they give us so much more to talk about than just one show alone in the space, and so much more for our students and campus visitors to see as well. So I say this at every talk that I give here at the museum, but it bears repeating. It's such a great privilege to have art on campus and to have this wonderful 2 museum spaces to bring our students into to teach with art in person. And especially during the COVID time when field trips to places like the Met in New York or to New Haven have not been possible, we've still been able to get into the galleries, to bring our students in, to write about original works of art, and to talk about them in front of them. Okay, so let's talk about some of the themes and artists and works that are in the exhibition. Get some of our images up here. So as the title of the exhibition, Inkstone, suggests, the works are brought together loosely around the idea of ink and stone and the various touch points, real, conceptual, and in terms of motifs between these materials. The first contact might be that of grinding the ink stick or cake on the abrasive surface of an inkstone, generating the primary medium of Chinese painting throughout the millennium. Though by no means all of the diverse artists in this show employ this quote-unquote traditional medium. And you'll see 2 examples of inkstones in the exhibition, as well as other stone objects, jade, limestone, steles, and rocks. So stones, rocks, and their larger counterpoints, mountains, provide one theme. Ornamental rocks, like the one that you see on the right, are part of a weighty tradition, really, of collecting and display, of commentary and of appreciation, standing in for and at the same time materially taking part of larger mountains. A contemporary artist, Wong, the one on the left here, evokes this tradition. He uses the title artificial rock, translating the Chinese jiashanshi, or fake mountain stone, to refer, which is a term that can be used not just for his own works in stainless steel, but also for ornamental rocks themselves as they evoke or stand in for mountains. In his own words, Wong says, quote, "Placed in a traditional courtyard, rock fragments used to satisfy people's yearning for nature through their representations of rocks from nature. But huge changes in the world have made this traditional ideal increasingly outdated. I have thus used stainless steel to duplicate and transform natural rockery into manufactured forms. The material's glittering surface, ostentatious glamour, and illusory appearance make it an ideal medium to convey new dreams." End quote. So John Wong critiques urbanization and at the same time suggests alternatives or adaptations to it. In Beijing, where he lives and works, where older neighborhoods have given way to rapid development and glittering high-rises. So many of his works involve large examples, like, for example, the one on the right here, which was in the Vancouver Biennale, installed outside, not necessarily just in a museum environment. And the rock that you will see in the gallery normally lives in the Williams College Library, where it's enjoyed by students visiting that space on a regular basis. So I'm glad we were able to bring it here and to contextualize it with these other works this time. In terms of process, he takes actual rocks and replicates them in hollow stainless steel. Sheets of steel are placed onto a rock, or in some cases, a model made from an actual rock. And then these sheets are joined together to replicate the original object and polished to leave no trace of its manufacture. And I should note that also many of the scholars' rocks were also worked, altered in some way, not simply harvested from nature, even though the ideal was to not leave a trace of that or suggest that this had been the case. Continuing with the theme of ornamental rocks, Liu Dan on the right is a very well-known contemporary painter of landscapes and of scholar stones, one of his favorite subjects, on which he often inscribes ancient and sometimes modern commentaries on rocks and stones. He's been commissioned to respond to actual rocks in museum and private collections, for example, painting one rock from many different views. And this stone, which I believe is one in his own collection, he has painted on several different occasions. So they're kind of like portraits, but not simply a realistic depiction. They become a way of discovering the unfamiliar. As Liu Dan states, quote, "Your one responsibility as an artist is changing the visual experience of people, the way they look at things. Your one purpose is to encourage an openness of mind that allows them to look beyond everyday concerns and to think freely." So rocks like this one, you can really kind of get lost in them and find strange and new things as you move through the landscape of the rock. Another point of contact or theme is relationships between the artists and the show themselves. So Liu Dan and Muxin, the two shown here, who are on the same wall in the gallery as well, were friends. Both of them lived in the United States for extended periods from the 80s through the 2000s, and both returned to live and work in China later on. Liu Dan now works in Beijing, and Muxin returned back to live in China before his passing. The two are united also by their deep engagement with European art history, and specifically with a Renaissance painting, which they both studied deeply during their formative periods as artists. Now, Liu Dan works mainly in ink, whereas Muxin employs gouache and other kinds of materials and techniques, embracing accident as well in his work. Through his subjects and titles, here, Stone Cave in a Desiccated Cliff, evokes antiquity and the Chinese art historical canon. And some of the series of landscapes, which is at the Yale University Art Gallery, I first encountered, I think it was back in 2001 when I was a graduate student there, and the wonderful exhibition of Muxian's landscape paintings and prison notes were on display there at the Yale University Art Gallery. This is another touch point between two artists in the show. Wang Jiqian, who's known as often as C.C. Wang in the West, and Arnold Cheng, his longtime student, an American artist of Chinese heritage who studied with C.C. Wang, I believe, for 25 years in New York. So the calligraphy on the right by Wang Jiqian is on display in the gallery, as is the scroll by Arnold Cheng. The title inscription on the top is done by C.C. Wang, so the teacher here inscribing the work of his student. And you won't be able to see the calligraphic inscription as we have the scroll showing one landscape section, but I thought it was nice to have the opportunity here to show it, as that begins the scroll and is kind of the first thing that you would encounter as you read through the landscape scroll or look through the landscape scroll. C.C. Wang himself was a painter as well as a calligrapher and a collector of rocks, and of course of works of art. He is very well known as a connoisseur of Chinese paintings. And he has written about rocks and even painted them himself later in his years, rocks from his own collection. Now, Arnold Cheng identifies with the literati, or the men of letters, if you will, tradition of Chinese painting, scholar officials, amateur painters whose ideals emphasized self-expression and brushwork versus naturalistic copying of forms from the real world in meticulous detail. And this was the same context, the literati tradition, in which ornamental rocks were collected and appreciated and written about as well. And so if you watch the video of Arnold Cheng that's in the lobby and also next to his scroll, you can access it via a link. You can see grinding of ink, and you can see a rock in the background, as well as more of his work. So another theme or touch point is the mountainous landscape and the human body. Literati artists, or artists who identify with the literati tradition, mainly paint imagined landscapes, not real places. As Cheng notes, it's not about the subject for him, it's about the brushworks, and it's about the formal concerns of building up the forms in the painting. But the brushstrokes used to record these mountains are intimately linked with the human body. Huang Yan, the artist of the photograph on the right, states, quote, "To paint a landscape is to paint man, to paint oneself. When I undertook to paint Chinese landscapes on my face, hands, and body, man was the subject, landscape was the object. A landscape painted on the human body was the materialization of the union between subject and object," end quote. Now, the landscape here is on Huang Yan's body, but it is actually painted by his wife, Zhang Tianmie. And the title here references shan shui, which is the Chinese term for landscape, mountain, and water. And the use of the term tattoo is also interesting, another kind of ink, even though this is not actually a tattoo on his body. It suggests, to me at least, a kind of permanence or inscribing, rather than the kind of ephemerality of body paint. Now, although we only have one photograph of his in the show, this is in fact part of a series of 13 views of his body painted, all showing a different perspective: front, arm, side, and back. So I thought, again, it was a nice opportunity to be able to bring a few more of these images into the conversation here. The central one is the one that you'll see in the gallery. Okay, another theme or touch point is artists whose art and life involves extended stays or excursions in real mountains. So whereas the fan painting in the center here depicts the ideal of a gentleman retreating to nature to escape the noisy hustle and bustle of the everyday world. And the inscription, suggests as much. Some of the artists in the show actually greatly enjoyed hiking in mountains, such as Xia Yifu on the right, who frequently roamed the mountains of Taiwan, where he lived, getting ideas for his compositions and bringing those back to his studio. Chu Guoliang on the left returned many times to climb Mount Huang in Anhui province. I'll just show you this right here. So you can see a picture depicting really quite faithfully the landscape of this famous mountain range in Anhui, a popular tourist destination and a very popular subject in the art historical tradition, at least since the 17th century. There are paths that move up around through these craggy cliffs, so he's responding not just to the landscape, but to the tradition of painting this place as well. Now, Chu Guoliang also spent many years living in New York before returning to China. And he uses techniques such as gouache in his paintings as well, and quite a bit of color. So he differs from some of the other artists in the exhibition in that respect. And something entirely different here too. While formally different, the artist of this piece also works intimately in and with nature. Bingyi combines extended stays in mountains with meticulous research into the scientific properties of the materials she uses, paper, ink, as well as the environmental factors that impact them. Her art defies easy categorization. Her practice extends beyond painting to poetry, to calligraphy, performance art, environmental and land art, music, literary compositions, and criticism. And she's also trained as a scholar with a PhD in Han Dynasty Chinese art. She works on both a very, very small scale and monumental scale with site-specific installations that she's done. For example, at the Smart Museum in Chicago, where she created a large work called Cascade that hung through the lobby. In the galleries, you can also access a video of her working on site in mountains with a paper and ink waterfall across mountain cliffs. Okay, so the last theme, and I think I'm right on time here, that I want to discuss is works that deal with brushless contact between stone, ink, and paper, looking at rubbings, stampings, and sealings that involve direct contact. Now I've just grouped these here together, and I'll just talk about a few of them individually. So Qiu Deshu was trained as a seal carver. These are the red stamps that you will see on many of the works in the exhibition, and that he uses as material and as motif in his compositions as well. And he talks about the seal as the symbol of the self, and his work of tearing this and pasting it back together in this very, very large scale work. You'll also notice fissure-like motifs in his works. This was inspired by seeing cracks in stone and led him to develop this kind of signature technique of tearing and pasting back together papers in his compositions. Compositionally, this one also reminds me of Buddhist steles, of stone steles, of cave paintings, of woodblock printed materials, of repetitions of Buddhas. So I think there's a lot to talk about between this work and some of the stone steles that are in the exhibition as well. Now the work of Li Chanyee while it looks as it may have been painted, has actually been stamped. He uses small carved cork seals to stamp and create these mountainous compositions through stamping rather than using a brush. And he has also been inspired by steles and their kind of rectangular gridded textual sections, as well as by the idea of rubbing and transferring from stone to paper. And then there's the work of Gu Wenda, who references the historical tradition of stone steles, which are usually upright, rectangular slabs of stone, which preserve texts, is referred to them as textbooks of history and culture, including calligraphic styles, poetry, documentary texts, and epitaphs. And so they become a kind of symbol of authority, cultural, political, textual authority. The title of Gu's project, and I'll show you in a second the larger project that this is part of, references the Stele Forest, the Beilin Museum in Xi'an, that holds thousands of steles and ink rubbings taken from them. And I just show you one view here of a section of that. So on display in the gallery is one rubbing from this project, but the larger work involves 50 huge carved stone steles that were created to Gu's specifications by stone carving craftsmen in Xi'an, and then taken rubbings from these that you'll see. So the rubbing is created when a rice paper is pasted onto a stele and moistened, and the depressions is where the white paper remains, and then the ink is applied to the rubbing, and you get the black background of the rubbing. So many times these are actually easier to read than the stone carvings themselves, and they preserve stones that have worn down or eroded over time. The text on this speaks to Gu's interest in misunderstandings, cultural misunderstandings, language misunderstandings. He takes in each stele an iconic Tang Dynasty poem in Chinese, and then a 1929 translation from a book by Binner, and then retranslates the English phonetically into Chinese, into a new text, and then translates that again back into English. So each time it changes, right, as it goes from Chinese to English to Chinese to English again. As he says, quote, "Misunderstanding is not just a phenomenon of the translation among cultures. It's not only inevitable, but necessity. Only through the misunderstanding can we create the new." And then finally, the work Song of Pond, which Michelle mentioned in her introduction. This again uses oil on canvas, not ink on paper, as so many of the other works in the exhibition do. But again, references the tradition of stone carving. I think Huang Yue here has been inspired by the stone colossal scene of the death of the Buddha at Dazhou province, these cave shrines. And I want to thank Sherry Fowler for pointing this out to me. And also relates to some of the steles that we have in the exhibition, which are miniature kind of carved stone Buddhas in small form, referencing these very, very large stone carved cave shrines as well. Okay, so that gives you a kind of a preview and a little bit of context about what's in the exhibition. I've tried to bring out some of the themes that I was thinking about as we were pulling these works together, and I'm sure we'll find lots more to talk about when we see this together in the galleries afterwards. And I'm going to hand it back to Michelle. And I look forward to hearing from Jo's exhibition at this point, right? The clicker is right there.
Well, thank you so much, Eva, for that introduction to Inkstone. And I just want to reiterate that although those who are with us in person tonight will be able to read Dr. Covaci's fabulously informative essay that is in the brochure, we'll be able to use QR codes to access the videos featuring the artists in their own words that she mentioned during her talk. Anyone watching at home can also do that through the Matterport VR tour that we have on the website, and the brochure is also on the website for you to read there as well. So it is now my pleasure to introduce Jo Yarrington, Professor of Studio Art in the Department of Visual and Performing Arts here at Fairfield University. Jo has been in over 350 solo and group exhibitions in the United States, Germany, Italy, Scotland, Mexico, Iceland, Greece, and China. She's been the recipient of numerous international grants and fellowships, including from the Pollock Krasner Foundation, the New York Foundation for the Arts, and the Museum of Glass Artist Residency. She represented the United States at the Sharjah Biennial in the United Arab Emirates and was a participant in the Berlin Biennial. In 2010, she won the Bronze Prize at the Museum of Contemporary Art in Skopje, Macedonia. Yarrington studied at Ohio State University, where she received her BAE, BFA, and MFA, and she currently lives and works in New York City. Please join me in welcoming Professor Jo Yarrington.
Hi, everyone. I'm glad you made it tonight, and good evening. I was wondering if the snow was going to keep us all away, but I'm delighted that we have a chance to meet in person. To begin, I'd like to thank the Fairfield Museum of Art Director Carrie Weber and the Curator of Education and Academic Engagement, Michelle. Thank you for that introduction. It was lovely. Who made this exhibition possible. I also would like to thank our funding partners, the College of Arts and Sciences, the Department of Visual and Performing Arts, and the Printmaking Network of Southern New England. In the spring of 2019, I was lucky to be one of 5 American artists who traveled to Guangzhou to take part in a cross-cultural exchange between the United States and China. The other 4 artists were Margot Rocklin, Mary Teichman, Carmela Vente, and Yumei Zhang, and they're all here tonight, whom you will meet. Also, Yumei you will meet on the video, which we'll see right after my introduction. All 5 of us are members of the Printmaking Network of Southern New England, PNSNE, a collective of artists printmakers. This 2019 initiative, titled Crossings and Transpositions Part 1, included both an educational program as well as individual solo exhibitions. The exhibitions and the concurrent educational events took place at the Guangzhou Academy of Fine Arts Museum and in the Academy Studios. The catalog for this exhibition is available for viewing in the Walsh Gallery, so I hope you get a chance to take a look at that, and you'll also get a preview of it in the video that we'll be showing in a couple of minutes. Our response to the 2019 trip, the 5 of us, as well as a revisit of some of those pieces initially exhibited in 2019, are concurrently being shown in the Loyola Hall Studio Art Galleries in an exhibition titled Crossing and Transpositions Extended, Reflections from China. This exhibition runs from January 19th to February 18th, and we had our opening last night, and is open to the public from 10 to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. Workshops and demonstrations on the techniques used will be open to the public and will take place in Loyola Hall, room 20, on February 2nd throughout the day, starting at 11 a.m. And going through till 4:30, and also on February 16th at 11 a.m., where you will be giving a Chinese brush painting workshop, which I'm looking forward to all of these demonstrations and workshops. This exhibition and programming has been generously supported by the Humanities Institute of the College of Arts and Sciences. I'm very grateful for the ability to do both of these exhibitions and have them work out so well. The second component of this initiative, Seeing is Believing, Crossing and Transpositions Part 2, you'll be able to see that in a couple of minutes in the Walsh Art Gallery. The 5 Chinese artists whose work is part of this exhibition have joined us tonight via Zoom and will be introducing themselves and speaking about their work. They are as follows: Hu Zhencheng, who's an artist and professor in the Department of Oil Painting in the Guangzhou Academy of Fine Arts and is current director of the department Studio One. Lo Bi Wo, artist and professor and tutor of postgraduate students in the printmaking department is an artist and professor and tutor of postgraduate students in the printmaking department of the Guangzhou Academy of Fine Arts. Zhao Zhaoming is an artist and professor of painting in the Junior College of the Fine Arts in Guilin, Guangxi. Chong Chongming is an artist and professor of fine arts and tutor of postgraduate students at Nanjing Normal University. He's also the director of the Art Museum of Nanjing Normal University. And finally, Zhao Chung Yao is an artist and professor and tutor of postgraduate students at the Guangzhou Academy of Fine Arts. So the aspect of artists and educators across many miles was really intriguing to us, and we were excited to be have a part of and take part in this initiative. The artists collectively are exhibiting 40 pieces of their work in the museum. The work includes ink on paper, collage, mixed media, painting, sculpture, images of ceramics, and prints. For the duration of the exhibition, the Chinese artists will conduct virtual talks and virtually will be showing you some demonstrations. There are also, you will have a chance to see them in their studio through a video that is running on an iPad in the museum, so I hope you get a chance to take a look at that when you're in there. Seeing is Believing Part, Crossings and Transposition Part 2 and Inkstone explore the many ways in which contemporary Chinese artists both draw upon and challenge cultural traditions. We really wanted the artists to be here tonight, and they were very sad, and you'll hear in their Zoom presentations, they apologize for not being able to come, but I think the circumstances are beyond all our controls. But in the video that you'll see, which is about 15 minutes, they'll introduce themselves and where they're from, and you'll have a chance to look at the catalog images of each of their work as that's being scanned down. They'll talk about the work that you're seeing in the catalog. They are going to discuss what motivated their selections, why they chose certain media in which to work, and in doing so, they'll provide a context for the general focus of the series of images that you will be viewing, which are displayed in the exhibition. So I think we can go to the video right now, and I look forward to seeing you in the exhibition. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Ive Covaci, and I'm the artist from China, graduated from Central Fine Art Academy in 1988, and I'm moving to the United States in about after graduation, and in 1989, I think for many years, and currently living in Avon. And I was Jill was in, and as a four artists together is from Southern New England Printmaking Network. So we 2019 went to China together. So tonight I'm very glad to have a chance to as with you and see if I can do some in English and Chinese version of the language.
I'm He Jiancheng, as now I living in Guangzhou. Before I work in, I taught in the Guangzhou Academy of Fine Arts, and I'm so happy my works can display in Fairfield's Art Museum. but unfortunately, this time we cannot go to USA for the live openings. But anyway, I'm so happy here to see each other.
我叫罗碧武，现在是广州美术学院。
Professor Luo, he's a printmaking department professor, and currently he focuses on the printmaking with modern art together. It's focus how use the printmaking work with the modern art concept in his piece, and focus on his major printmaking method is silkscreen. He's very happy to have a chance to for this time to presenting his work during this show, and because the COVID-19, he wished he could be here with everybody. And thanks for Jo and all of the curator for together for make this show to happen.
大概就这么介绍我自己的。好，谢谢。
很高兴跟大家见面，也有跟我国内的
Professor Zuo is director of the Guangzhou Fine Art Academy Museum of Fine Art. He curated many of the well-known art shows during the timing. Currently, he is in Los Angeles. Because the pandemic time, he was about 2 years missing China a lot. And focus on his work mostly is the paper brush painting, the Asian Chinese brush painting, and also another area he's also do ceramic. Both area he's doing as a professor to also have postgraduate students in Guangzhou University. He give conduct a lot of lectures, many things, and he's also in the Asian, one of the Asian associate curator for many art show as well. So the most of the time that he focus his art currently is on paper medium. He's very happy to attend in this time, have a chance to be everybody's here.
是这样，就是
首先是感谢你们所做出的这个努力。
Professor Zhang is very similar. It's like Professor Zuo. Both of them is emphasized to do a lot curator for the well-known art show, and he also is teaching in the Nanjing Normal University in Nanjing, and director of the art museum of the Nanjing Normal University. His work is emphasized on the brushwork, how to traditional Asian brushwork, how to transfer, maybe is into the concept connected with the modern art. In the process currently he's working on. So currently he has one very well-known, the second of the Nanjing ink and water, which you can also call brush painting, the second well-known art show holding in his museum.
主要是从事这方面的这个工作努力。
你好，谢谢。那个非常荣幸呢，就是能够参加。
Xiao Yarrington, his name. He is a graduate from Department of the Art of the Central China Normal University. Currently, he is professor of the painting in the Junior College of Fine Art in Guilin. His focus on currently is the three area of the art. One is the painting, oil painting, another is the paper medium, and the third is the ceramic. So this time he was showing the pieces, mostly is the paper printmaking, and that's you will see on his work. Currently, he is very focused on how to use the traditional medium connected with the modern art. The many of the thoughts and the concept he's working on. He very thankful for all the museum, the curators, everybody's in the Fairfield University and Professor Jules, and make this happen. And this is thanks very much from his mind and his heart for this time for the show.
This time I saw my artworks in print, and actually I doing the different media of the materials in my art. My artworks, the media include the installation and video, oil, and ink, or something like that. It's my ideas, my works ideas. I want to express my my thinking is about the universal and the life, and how the life, how to come and how to go. So I use the symbol like a stone, and symbol for the life. The life, I think, is come from the stone, because before the human beings appear in the universal, in my mind, so I think that's nothing. But actually, the life has come from the stone. So I want to express this concept in my art. This is my basic the concept of my art. Yeah.
那个这批作品的这尺版画。
Professor Xiao, he was emphasized on the Asian images. The images is from Qing Dynasty. Is the name is Qing Xuan. It's one of the measurement, and these things look like a current is not used often in the society, but it has a lot of meaning for it. So he digged from the history and how these Qing Xuan from the rusty images and to very old images. So he used a paper printmaking method to display his thoughts in his art. So from the audience, when they look in the old Qing Xuan, which is the measurement images, they might have some connection from history, and also what's the meaning for from the old China in the Qing Dynasty time and to current contemporary art. That's what he's focused on current right now. The original pieces is it's from the clay. It's in the burn and then pop out the ceramic pieces, but this time he's showing is the print out images because for the air shipment to US, so it's too heavy to transfer to here.
从它的那个实用的角度和
应该说我的作品有几个
Professor Rowe has described his work since the 2000 year of the 2000. The time in China started, change a lot. Village became a more modern city and building everywhere. So that's why his the 2000 period, you will see his silk screen at the back. The edition of pieces is like a modern, like you will see everywhere, the plastic bag. So he used those concepts, as a wrap from the old and go shopping, getting the new, all those concepts together for his pieces in that period. So also is showing the price list, and people start to use, different things. The plastic bag is so cheap, but actually the inside is very variable. So some old stuff also gone, the new stuff is coming. So kind of put a question mark for the society. What's the new variable? So that's in the period of 2000, his work. And then in his piece of some of the silk screen, you will see some dog and a human. So his question, dog human, those relationship is very close, and also the dog, could be smelling everything. The human is new with the dog, those friendship. How you can see his pieces the loneliness and the coordinating together, those kind of idea in the animal with human together. And then he was some of the pieces, he also thinking about use material directly to showing his printmaking. It's not only making the printmaking, and he used the material directly showing his method on the silk screen, printing on the loop pieces and making the loop pieces together as the book, bonding together for people to look or not look as the culture, yes or no, as a question mark in there as well. And later on, as current, he also used those can cover, which is the mostly a circle, as to describe the society, has a lot of ravaging from different world. The idea is for all his concept for different kind of source, he still continue like a research and search the root of the art, traditional art as a modern art combination together, how to describe. That's which is he's working on right now.
做的事情，谢谢。
那个因为我的这个作品的这一批呢
So Professor Zuo, his work, you can see is mostly emphasized on female images. Female images is the early time he was mentioning the Saito's philosophy and also Shimen the letters for his initially thinking process. And then he was use a lot of piece. He was use the girl from China. China, that was actually, if real spell in China is called Chanyee, which is the city of the porcelain, actually the village, whole villages are making beautiful porcelain, Jingdezhen, which is the town of the name, come out beautiful, famous China. So the girl he was emphasize the images are coming from mostly from the life, like college girls and people's real surrounding around her, around the society. And he not only use brush ink, he will be used like some of use metals, some is use ceramic, some is almost the same size as a human, like the girl's size, and pieces use different material to create his pieces. So you can feel it, the girl has different pose and different motion in all his descript on his artwork. Mostly all the material combined together is on his focus on the female expression of the images. That's what he was talking about. Some of the pieces even was showing in the Venice biennial show in the several years ago, and also many pieces has very huge. You can see he's showing his oven and also the China porcelain pieces on the video.
这个女性的这种思考，所以。
那个我的这批作品呢，就是正好也。
Professor Zhang, those artwork this time in the show is he did it during the pandemic time. So he was mostly his emphasis is ink and brushwork, how to connect it from traditional method to contemporary art to current society. So you can see some of the pieces like the girl on the left corner on the catalog. You will see the traditional image in the back, but you also see some like a digital image in the front. So it's kind of like a combination together. So it's kind of he's like a really seeking the traditional method with the ink and the brushwork with the contemporary life and the current human life, how those connection to expressing his thoughts in his artwork. Many of them, like if you look in the right side in the catalog, that pieces, look at the person on the left, and he in the background was the landscape, and he was like seeking, the human was look like a very traditional seeking the answer from the modern world. So all of those together, he's really looking for is the ink and the brushwork, the traditional way to the current way, the real life combination together and seeking the art format. That's what he's working on right now. So those pieces, you can see many of them has those idea in his work.
前提之下而做出的一些探索。好。
To Yume for her translation work, and also a very special shout out to Jamie DiStefano in the Media Center, who took 5 disparate Zoom interviews and created the video that we were just watching, so thank you to them. Obviously, we will not use a round of applause for all of those. I think you can guess that you will not be able to tender any questions directly to the artists in Seeing is Believing, but I don't know where Dr. Covaci, if she is in the back. If anyone has any questions for Dr. Covaci or for Professor Yarrington, we can always put her on the spot. Please feel free to step up to one of the microphones in the audience and ask. Julia, I'd like to.
You never know mask on or mask off. Does anyone have any questions about what you just saw? Anything we can help with?
We can talk in the galleries too.
Yes. Might be easier to talk in the galleries if you have any questions about those as well. So.
That's true. And it's one benefit of being such a small crowd. It'll be very easy for you to find either of these 2 wonderful women. So another round of applause for their work, and we look forward to welcoming you in the gallery.
Thank you. We'll see you in the gallery.